Welcome to the podcast where I talk about what really shapes our health, not just our habits, but our mindset. I'm April, a health and weight loss coach who is on my own journey to lose weight, rebuild confidence, and most importantly, change the way I think about myself and my goals. Each week, I will talk about the real challenges of weight loss, the ups and the downs, and the powerful roles that our thoughts and approach play in transforming our bodies and our lives. Whether you're just getting started, feeling stuck, or ready to level up your results, this is your space for real talk and a reminder that change always starts from within. So take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's get into it. This week, I'm going to talk about how eatings with your eyes open, why awareness changes weight loss. So I really thought about what to talk about this week. And the year's wrapping up, we talk about that. And then I was realizing I was really thinking about my year and other things I've learned and things that I want to reestablish in my new year. So, as I talk about in this podcast often, that I am on this journey with you and sharing what I learn and my experiences and hoping that that will help and encourage others and not feel alone in the journey in general. So, one thing I was realizing for my year is I was wearing blinders through a lot of it in the sense of my food, right? So I started therapy, a lot of things changed with that. So a lot of things I'm more aware of. But within that, I was overeating to cope. I was going back to original coping skills in place of the ones that I was newly developing. So, with the new year coming, I really want to reestablish the other tools that I was using for myself that had me feeling good about me and about how I was showing up for myself, as well as learning about myself. One of the big things was awareness with my eating. And awareness is such a big factor in weight loss. And in life in general, with anything that you're working on, if you're more aware of what you want to work on and how to get there, that's going to be helpful, right? But a lot of us will hear about mindful eating, mindful eating. And what does that mean? I mean, it essentially tells you in the name, mindful, being more mindful about what you're eating. But how do I approach that? What does that mean for me? How will that work for me? And I think a big part of it, and through many different plans, you'll hear the suggestion about writing down your food, writing your plan for the day, whether it's writing a plan on paper, in a journal, digital, counting calories, you're still planning, right? So, whatever that looks like for you. Within the planning part, within writing it down, the awareness already starts. You're being more mindful about your day. You're being more intentional about how you want to show up for your day. Whether or not you follow the plan 100%, I have noticed for myself that a day with a written plan is always more successful in terms of how I show up for myself over a day that a plan is not written at all. Why is that? And I feel like I think I know what I want to do. I know what my day is going to be like. I know how I want to show up. And that's true. But the act of writing it down or entering it in an app or whatever works for you in general or whatever you connect with in general, mine is definitely pen to paper. I connect a lot more with that. It really sticks more in the forefront of my brain. And I feel like when we don't do that, for myself, especially, I can speak for, it is a huge sign that I am not aware of what I'm doing or how I'm feeling or where I'm at. And most likely, I'm trying to avoid something, whether it's an activity or a thought. It's usually a thought, it's usually a situation, it's usually an emotion for me. And I think for many of us, if we stop making plans and taking that 5 minutes for ourselves, I feel like it's a very big indicator and red flag that, hey, you are not wanting to be in touch with yourself for some reason. You're avoiding something, whether, like I said, it's thoughts, emotions, maybe it's just an overwhelming day and you just don't want to deal with it. We have to work on reminding ourselves that this is the best way to take care of ourselves through any situation. We want to make planning so second nature that it's just something that happens regardless of what life brings to us. At the same time, I think a lot of us think that it's going to happen overnight. This habit is just like always going to be that habit. But if we haven't had a life of making a plan, and even if you've been on a roll, and again, I'm speaking for myself, I was really diligent with making a plan for probably 2 years. 2 out of the 4 years that I started working on my thoughts and how they affect my weight and my health and my mindset in general of life and relationships. And thinking, yeah, this is a part of what I do now. I don't have to worry about that. But it's still such a beginning part of my journey of what I'm working on now to move forward. And life threw me a little bit more than I was prepared for this year, mentally and emotionally, with starting therapy. So I was avoiding things and I did feel overwhelmed. And those habits that were still new in developing were easy to kind of let drop away. And because I was trying to avoid some emotions that were going on, it was again an indicator of avoidance, not wanting to make a plan, not wanting to deal with emotions, not making a plan. Very much connected with that. So I would say that that is my one of my big focuses for the new year is to make a plan daily. And it can be very basic. I was really good. I had gotten good after some time and learning to not always be so strict with a plan that I was making. Sometimes it had a lot of choices. Sometimes it was very vague. It was just best intentions for a meal or just pay attention to not eating past enough where I felt too full, different variations of what I would write down, but I would write something and just the act of doing that. There's other ways to be intentional and more aware when you're eating. And I feel like a lot of people will eat in the hurry of the day or when they're alone for 2 minutes and just shoving whatever they have in the moment and eating it really fast. So you're not really taking the time to be aware of what you're eating. Your body is not necessarily registering what you're eating. And I notice for me too, it's not necessarily what I eat, but how I'm eating it, which is where awareness came in. And that's kind of what got me thinking about what I wanted to talk about today. So let's just say cookies, because there's been a lot of cookies during December. I'm not sure if everybody else can relate to that, but a lot of cookies, right, at the holiday. Now, if I had been writing a plan and wrote, today I'm going to have 2 cookies, whatever they will be, or even if I just write, I'm having cookies, however you want to do it, or you put it in your planner, however you're doing it, you're intending on doing that. And when I choose to eat them, I will put them on a plate and I will sit down at a table or even on the sofa. I don't have an issue like where you're eating it, other than maybe standing up at the sink or standing up in the pantry. I know that I'm definitely not being aware if I'm standing in the pantry eating or standing in the kitchen eating. But if I'm sitting down, I take a breath. I'll also work on pausing while I'm eating it, right? We hear a lot about putting the fork down in between bites. It's such a big help, such a small action. But in our brain, we do have to take a moment to remember to do that, right? Because whether you've been working all day or whatever it is, by the time you sit down to eat a meal, whether it's lunch at work or dinner at home, you're just kind of getting to it because you're still in that hurried state. So sitting down and taking a few breaths before eating, or when I was in the mix of everything of working on a lot of different habits I wanted to develop, one habit I would do, especially if I was home or at work and it was easy, I would stop in the middle of my meal and go to the bathroom because it was a break. It was a forced pause. And it gave me a moment to come back and assess, am I still hungry for more? Am I good for right now? Um, those are really good ways to bring awareness back to a moment of eating and noticing anything else that you could do, whether it's drinking water in between bites, putting down the fork, um, kind of visually setting aside a little bit of the plate um, to see like a quarter of it, set it aside and say like, I'll wait, I'll eat the rest. And for that quarter, I'm going to sip some water, make sure I'm really still hungry. Or asking yourself when you're choosing to eat again versus sitting at a table, taking a moment, if you're in the busyness of your day, some people can't. I know I've had jobs in my past where you can't necessarily get away from your desk or your area. So you're not taking a moment. But even if you set a timer on your phone for 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and step away into the break room to eat just for 5 minutes, to sit at the break room table or go to your car if that's a space you have, whatever space you have to make it just yours for 5 minutes. I feel like that's a really great way to separate from work, right? So you want to just, any way you can, bring awareness to when you eat. If you're having a snack after dinner that you've planned, put it on a plate, put it in a bowl. Try not to eat out of the bag. These are all things that make it so easy for it to be mindless or like your blinders are on. You're eating out of the bag, so you're like, I didn't have that much. Meanwhile, half the bag might already be gone, but you're not feeling like you ate much, or there's no real way to gauge how much you ate. So, any little thing that you can bring into be more aware of what you're consuming, of what you're eating. And think of it more of like you're not wanting to eliminate all of what you like to have. It's more, the goal is more to notice, like noticing, okay, when I get home, I eat chips from the pantry before even starting dinner because I've just felt so rushed all day and I didn't have a break. And so maybe you take 5 minutes in your car, even 2 minutes. 2 minutes is a long time if you're sitting and doing nothing. So if you're going from work to home and then right when you get in the house, you have so many things to do, set a timer in your car for 2 minutes before you go inside to just breathe and take a moment for yourself. These are the things that can help you be more aware. And you'll learn there's so many tips that you can even Google, ask friends what they've done if you're in a group. Um, but I've noticed that when you make a choice and know that, yes, it's the holiday. I'm going to be at a holiday dinner tonight. I am going to choose to have dessert and have cookies. That's not the same as you rushing home, feeling stressed out from your day, feeling like you never got a break, going to your pantry, grabbing the cookies, and just eating cookies. They're very different experiences. And that's something to just think about, to be aware of, and think about think of one way you could work on that. I don't necessarily think that you want to try everything all at once because I think that can be overwhelming. But whether it's pausing halfway through and going to the bathroom, whether it's taking 3 breaths at your plate before starting to eat, taking sips of water in between bites, putting your fork down, starting with protein first, eating that over eating the carbs first on the plate. However, it just gives you pause to be more present with what you're eating and why you're choosing to eat it. I think that would be really helpful. And that's pretty much what was on my mind today. And with the new year coming up, this year's ending, really write down the things that you want to work on for yourself for the new year and make a list, not to do them all at once, but work on one and really just be intentional about that one, whether it's pausing, taking a break, drinking more water, more movement, journaling, any of these things that mean something to you that will help you move forward. I invite you to think about that, make notes. This podcast, the next podcast will be a little shorter with the end of the year. A lot's going on. A lot of things are coming up. Changing at the podcast, starting a new year with that as well. Just working on things, getting to move forward. But I appreciate you tuning in. I hope this was helpful and got you thinking about how you could be more aware of what you eat and how that affects you. And if you're putting the blinders on with when you're eating, you're not present and you will tend to overeat more, right? So weight loss is not about eating less, it is about noticing more. So I'll see you next week for another conversation to keep you moving forward. And as always, remember to wake up willing to do something that feels good to you. Bye.